Hello, and thank you for joining us for this presentation, Maximizing Potential, Transform Your Workplace with Strengths-Based Talent Management. This program is part of the SHRM Webcast series. You can learn about upcoming and on-demand events from our e-newsletters and the webcast homepage at shrm.org/webcast. SHRM thanks ADP for sponsoring this program and our series of free webcasts for the HR community. Now about today's program. You'll explore the transformative power of a strengths-based approach over traditional skills-based practices for your workplace. To lead our presentation, we're pleased to welcome Doreen Coles and Amy Freshman with ADP. Here's more information about our presenters. Doreen Coles is Senior Director, Career Growth and Development at ADP. Doreen is a second-generation ADPer, coming into the organization in 2005 as her mom was retiring from a 33-year career. Spending her first 10 years in frontline leadership gave her the time and experience to recognize the need for a sharper focus on career development. Doreen was instrumental in creating her own role, starting it from the ground up in June of 2015. Still executing her dreams each day in this role, she is responsible for the creation and execution of the Career Growth and Development Strategy for ADP enterprise-wide. That's 64,000 associates. To round out the strategy, she also manages nearly 200 volunteer associates, an international team of volunteer project managers, and each of their career growth projects. Amy Freshman is Senior Director, Global HR Automatic Data Processing at ADP. Now into her 29th year with ADP, she spent 17 years in the sales organization and joined ADP's Human Resources organization in 2012 to lead the Flexible Work Arrangements program. In July 2017, Amy took on the added responsibility as the Human Resources lead on all activity related to mergers and acquisitions within ADP. In addition to her job-related responsibilities, she is repeatedly asked to lead critical global events across ADP, such as their annual Month of Wellness for their entire organization, providing sessions and engagement activities focused on their associates' well-being and driving a culture with wellness in the workplace. She has accepted the one-year appointment to be an advisor to the UVM Women in Leadership program at the University of Vermont to help guide and direct both the content and delivery for future students. I'm now pleased to turn over the webcast microphone to Doreen Coles and Amy Freshman.
Yay, thank you so much, Connor. Boy, Amy, I guess with 20 to 30 years at ADP, the bios get really, really long. So hello, everybody. We're so happy that you're joining us today. We won't do any more introduction than Connor so beautifully already did for us, but I do have a little teaser for you, and that is that we've got something to give you at the end of our time today. Besides all that amazing SHRM credit and goodness that you get, we've got a little gift as our way of saying thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering if I get SHRM credit because I am SHRM certified. So does it count if I'm facilitating? I think it does, right?
It does.
And thanks all. I'll just say I'm seeing lots of folks in the chat. Please keep it going. It lets us know who's here. And I'm seeing folks from all over the country. So welcome, and we're super excited to have you here. I see Georgia, California, Washington, Austin, all sorts of places. So welcome and thank you. So what I'd like to do is start with a poll. So a lot of this, not just the attendee chat, we're going to have some poll slides, as hopefully many of you are familiar with and excited for, because we really want to keep it engaging. Our intent here is to have you leave with key takeaways, new information, education, and a little bit certainly on our experiences as well. So let me go ahead and shift to the poll slide. Let's see if this works. Okay, hopefully the poll should be up. So we probably, you can see it. Okay, good. So we probably have lots of folks joining from different walks within your organization. What we'd like to first hear, and the poll is up, so please start adding in your answers to the question. We're really trying to understand what business objectives are you aiming for. So when you saw this announcement or advertisement come out, something prompted you to say, I want to go learn more. So you'll see up on the slide, and I can only see a portion of it, so I'm going to cheat a little bit with my right screen. What are you looking for? Is it more about quality? Is it safety? Are you worried about things like each, which is yes to all of that. So let me give it another moment, and then I'll see if I can get the poll to complete.
Yeah, folks, you may need to scroll down on that poll. There's a
Okay, we
lot.
got 51%. Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see a little more than half of you. The percentage is increasing, so thank you. So let me go ahead and there it is. Oh, Doreen, so we have a little bit of a mixed bag. I see a decent amount from retention. Along, yes to all of that. So I think that gives us, Doreen, a good precursor to kind of why folks came in. So I'm going to kick us off here. And I think this is important to think about as we think about talent trends. Certainly, as you're looking at the slide,
Hey, Amy.
AI certainly is getting its fair share in the spotlight here in 2024, and clearly for the next few years to come and then some, is and will continue to significantly impact how we work, and the talent we seek, ever evolve. It can be said for DE&I skills, work arrangements, which is very near and dear to me as we think about where our staff works, where our associates work, schedules that they work, right, the times in which they work. And for a company like ours, right, we're a global organization with 64,000 people worldwide working for our organization. So we are always thinking about different time zones and sort of following the sun from a perspective. Will always be top of organizations' priorities.
Okay, so we're going to pause for just a minute. Amy, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, because we think we need you to call in on audio. Go to the team chat and you'll see the audio number there. They're having struggles. So I'm just going to keep going, and then we'll let Amy get hooked up the other audio way so that you all can hear us. So what Amy said, I think we missed out on a bit of this, but she mentioned, of course, that AI is kind of a big trend right now that everyone's talking about it. It's not really new, to be honest. Folks are still having conversations about that. It's getting its share of the spotlight this year. So this conversation is really going to center around the talent topic of skills and how the best talent strategy recognizes that skills simply aren't enough to achieve those business objectives that you all are aiming for. And of course, we'll throw in some flexible work arrangements commentary as well, since we have ADP's resident expert on the topic, that is our friend Amy Freshman. So Amy, are you back with us now?
I'm on my phone. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yay.
Gotta love the technical stuff.
We do. Okay, super. So I think we're back. You can hear me. There's no echo.
Sounds good to me.
Beautiful. Okay. We good to advance to the next slide? Sorry, I'm getting myself resituated.
You bet. So we've got another poll.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks. Sorry, folks. Technology is sometimes our friend, sometimes it's not. So we have another poll. So thank you for your last participation. I was excited about all the answers, and sorry you couldn't hear me. So we'd love to understand from where you're sitting today as you're coming into this conversation, where are you on the skills bandwagon? So this poll doesn't have quite as many options, so we're going to try to narrow you down here. This is, A is everything from all aboard, right? We have mature skills and competencies, like we feel really good, we're tight all the way through to, wait, what? What are skills? Where is the wagon? I don't know where I am. So would love to see some of the results as they're starting to come in. By the way, there's no right or wrong answer here. So we're looking for you to come in with full candor and honesty of where you're sitting. And this will really help us, Doreen, right, in the remainder of the conversation, recognizing that many of you are probably across different spans as you think about this skills bandwagon. So good. I'm seeing some results come through. I'm going to wait till we hit about 50%. We're about 35%, so keep the poll coming. And then we can dive right in.
I see a lot of people answering in chat as well. So you should be able to select right on the poll your answer, but if you're putting it in the chat, that's fine too, because we're paying attention to everything.
Yeah, super. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of B's, in between B's and C's, which is good. Actually between B and C. Okay, good. All right, so we're over 50%. So I'm going to go ahead and click next so we can see the results. So Doreen, perhaps between some of what we saw in the chat and here, it looks like the heavy majority is in the B. So hey, we're getting there. We've begun to determine the needs, the needed skills for our roles and incorporating them. So you're good. You're moving in the right direction. You're in good hands for our conversation today. So thanks for jumping in on that poll. Doreen, it'd be great to kind of shift to tying back to what we talked about in the beginning, right? Like what brought you here? I think this is a great slide to bring folks through.
Yeah, we mentioned that we would get back to those business objectives, and I'll echo what Amy said as well. Wherever you are on the skills journey, what we would love to do is just share some ideas of how you can weave strengths into those skills practices and really all of your talent practices to help you win. So let's take a peek at these business objectives again. For any of those of you who measured quality, so if you answered, all of the above when we asked the question about your business metrics, or you chose the quality, customer quality, client service kind of answer, take a look at that very first line item there. Customer satisfaction increased by 10%. This is this poll, by the way, or it's not a poll, it's data and research based on decades of information and findings from, as you can see, 200 plus organizations, almost 2 million employees part of this study. And these are folks who strongly agree that they get to use their strengths every day at work. And these are the results that you see when those folks can strongly agree that they are using their strengths or playing to their strengths every day. So 10% increase in customer satisfaction. I can tell you, the career courses that we put out here, Amy, we average around 80 NPS, give or take. I'd take an 88. I'd take that 10% increase. That would be beautiful. I would love to report out on that. How about productivity measurements in your companies, whether it's maybe case handling or number of patients that you've helped, or you could have any kind of productivity metrics. 17% increase there. Profitability up by 21%. Hello, yeah, we all want that for our companies, right? And then some of the decreases that are so astounding, really. A 24% decrease in turnover. I think besides all on that poll, retention was the largest selection for our audience today. We're all focusing on keeping the amazing talent that we have in our organizations. We want to keep them with us. So this shows that when engaged teams who have folks who are playing to their strengths, they see a reduction in turnover by 24%. And by the way, little note on turnover here, this includes loads of different industries. So even the highest churning industries like maybe retail or restaurants, That's included in this calculation. So if you happen to be in an industry where turnover is not that excessive, you could see decreases as much as 50%. Decrease your turnover by 50%. Mind blowing, right? Absenteeism, I don't know, nobody ever calls out absent at ADP, and I'm sure that's the case with all of your companies as well. But that occasional thing happens, and how great would it be if we could reduce absenteeism by 40+%? I think we'd all be very happy to see that. And then the safety incidence is huge. If you happen to be in an organization where there are metrics and objectives around reducing the number of concerning safety incidents that you have, you can see that there's a significant decrease here. So, the data tells us, Amy, you know this, that strengths are the surest path to performance. This, again, decades worth of research, first with Gallup, most recently with ADP's Research Institute, millions of employees across multiple industries. So skills might be all that, but without strengths, your results will fall flat. Amy, I was just channeling, I was paying homage there to our favorite career growth and development sage and wordsmith, Dr. Beverly Smith, Dr. Beverly K, wordsmith. I know she loves to rhyme. She loves to do wordplay. So that was for her.
I love it. I love it. And she will definitely appreciate that. I think it's maybe a good segue to, I'll say, take a step back, but really kind of level set when we talk about strengths. What do we mean? And I would love to see some answers in the chat. And by the way, I see a message that said, hey, I put A on the last poll, but I'm kind of new to this, so I don't really know, and that's okay too. Right?
Totally okay.
We've said it already. I think you can gain a lot for the win. FTW for the win, Doreen, is that right? That was one question that just popped in the chat. Okay, good.
Yes, it is. I was channeling my teenager, so I'm working on it. Yeah, it's definitely important. Oops, sorry, Amy.
We've got lots of people who know the answer. Perhaps they have teenagers as well. So when you think about strengths, would love your question, or sorry, your responses in the chat. How would you describe strengths? You could Google dictionary it if you wanted to, but Doreen would be great to kind of hear from you as well.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, we have to make a comment about dictionary. For those of you who may be younger than me and Amy, dictionaries were these books, and they were in alphabetical order, and you would find definitions to words. They were really, really cool. Now, of course, you can, ask Alexa, you can Google, do Siri, whatever. We are curious as to what you think a traditional definition of strengths is. And I'm seeing some stuff, coming in, lots of different thoughts and ideas around it. I think probably if we, looked at the dictionary, it might say something like strengths are things that you're great at, you excel, maybe, you're top ranked, something along those lines. But what's interesting is that we do have a slightly different definition, here at ADP. We add feelings to the mix, and we essentially define strengths as activities that make us feel strong. And Amy, this is a super important distinction, because we can absolutely be great at things that we don't necessarily love doing. So Amy, I would love for you, and folks in the chat chime in here too. Can you think of a work activity that you're great at, but that you don't necessarily love? And by the way, we're all in a safe space. Don't worry about sharing out something that you don't necessarily love. So Amy, something you're great at, but you don't really love doing it.
That's a good question, Doreen. You put me on the spot. I have a hard time, and I think we may have mentioned this, or I'm going to mention it now. Every week we go through this exercise, right, of things that I'm doing that I don't really love that much, or I don't really enjoy that much. So I think an example for me, Doreen, is I love presenting. I do. It is, I'll say presenting, facilitating. When I'm asked to present and facilitate something that I'm not really that interested in, or it's not, I hate to use the word love, like it's just not a love of mine, the act of facilitating I enjoy. It's when I'm having to do it for something that I'm just not that interested in, it becomes a little bit more of a, I don't love it. It's just something that I do, right? So for me, it's, I have to like dig a little bit deeper. I'm very happy to say I love most of what I do. But that's sort of an example for me of people know that I enjoy doing it. I do a lot of it. So when I get pulled in to do something that I'm just not that interested in, it might not be as much of a love. What would you say for you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the one I always tell people about is expense reports, or really anything administrative. I'm good at it. Like I can get it done. I don't usually have mistakes, but I do not like doing that kind of thing. And I see a lot of answers in the chat too. Terminations, yes, we're sorry. That's hard. Being the equalizer, human relations, conflict management, staff conflicts, all of these things. Yeah. So what usually happens at work when we're really great at something? What happens? Amy, what do you think? When you're really great at something, what does your boss do?
When you're really great at something, you excel at it. You probably get good positive feedback. You get recognition. They tell other friends to say, hey, did you see Doreen do X, right? Word gets out for sure.
Word gets out, yeah. And a lot of times what ends up happening, if you're doing something really, really well, your leader or people around you will ask you to do more of it. So that's wonderful if you love that activity. But if you don't like it so much and you're getting asked to do more of it, wah, 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 that is not the favorite thing. So this is, interestingly enough, this is where those metrics come in again, because that can lead to burnout. When you're doing things, work that you're really, really good at, but that you do not get strong feelings from, that don't energize you, that don't engage you, that don't make you feel fulfilled and rewarded, that's where you get the burnout factor. So that, of course, that's related to productivity, performance, even health issues. So none of that is what we want for ourselves or our employees, right?
Yeah, I'll just also add that as sort of time goes on, and many of us individually and folks, of course, on your teams, the employees within your organization, as you're here longer, something might be a love originally. And then over time, you sort of start to do it more and more, and it becomes a little bit more of a, well, I really used to like doing that, but I've kind of moved on, and maybe not even moved on jobs, or like moved on to different activities, and there's new things that I sort of love even more. The word that we use is like, does it fuel you? And so if it starts to, I'll say, pull from you as opposed to fuel you, it becomes more of a nagging thing, or more of a, feels like a task, which I don't like that word, right? To me, the word task feels like I'm checking a box. It could become more and more a little bit of a load. So not a great scenario. And I know we're going to talk about some of the best practices here, so I don't want to steal thunder. So much of this is about having conversations with people around you, right? Whether it's leaders or peers, or it was shared a little bit in my bio at the beginning. I get pulled into a lot of different programs and different projects outside of my day job. By the way, working with Doreen for, I don't know, Doreen, 10, 15 years, I've lost track. This is a love of mine. But I think that it's really important to make sure that you're thinking through the work that you're doing and the work that you're getting pulled into. This awareness of what it is that you love will help you, as Doreen said, get involved in doing more of those things. That's the whole intent here, is understanding what those strengths are, what those loves are. So hopefully you can get to do more of them. I'm stealing your thunder, Doreen. Go ahead.
That's quite all right. This is exactly where we were going with it. What we want folks to be able to do is contribute the very best of themselves to their work, their team members, our companies in general, and to feel valued. We want them to feel value. We want to bring value, them to bring value in the unique way that only they can through their strengths and their natural talents and their natural tendencies. So yes, you hit it on the head. If strengths are activities that fuel us and make us feel strong, then we want to do more of them. And we want this kind of practice to be things that we allow our folks to contribute as well.
And I hope everybody sitting there, I sort of alluded to it a moment ago, like you're sitting there as your own associate, your own being, your own human in what are my strengths, right? What is it that I love? What fuels me? And then, you know, sort of the second bit of that is now starting to think about it for the rest of your organization. So again, one of the hopes is this is an opportunity either right now or post this conversation to start to reflect, right? And do a little bit more of that reflection at the end of the day, at the end of the week, or whatever that time frame is, and ask yourself some of those questions. Did I enjoy this work? Did it fuel me? Was it more of a love of mine, or did it sort of pull at me or take away from me? So just make sure that we're putting ourselves first here, a little bit of self-care, Doreen, and then thinking about it for your organization as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love a comment that Dawn makes in the chat. I find that if you can get your employees to feel seen and valued, then you can move mountains together. Those mountains are those stats, those metrics and objectives that we were looking at, and we really can move those mountains. And you know, it's like Dawn knew what we were going to talk about next, that valued people create value. And being valued goes beyond the tangible. It really does. You know, it's more than rewards or compensation. It can be felt in the way work is experienced in your organization. And research tells us that growth happens exponentially in areas and activities that we love and where we're already strong. I am not a neuroscientist. I think you probably know that about me, Amy. But through this strengths journey, I've learned enough to know that there's these little things in your brain, and they grow even faster and stronger in areas where you have that love, interest, and strength already. And let's take a look here, you know, on this slide in that box, you know, the term uniquely valued. Humans are super complex. We are. We have unique tendencies. We have unique loves and loathes, preferences and skills, et cetera, the whole 9 yards. Organizations that recognize and celebrate that uniqueness will win, because valued people do create value. And all of this is foundation to our conversation around why skills-based practices just aren't quite enough. So, you know, I say let's really dig into this, Amy.
Yeah, super. So we've got another poll slide up. I do see some comments in the chat. Someone said, well, we use Standout, so this is very relatable. It's something we're working on, right, at the company. So there's lots of questions. A lot of Standout is one of our products, but a lot of what we're talking through is foundational from that program and from that research. Doreen can certainly speak to it better than me, but this opportunity to reflect, check in, think through, and create opportunities and create space to not only self-understand, but again, I alluded to it already, share with others what those loves and maybe not so loves are. So we'll get to that here, I think, in some of the practice slides here. And the chat's up, folks are already adding in, so thank you for that. We would like to understand, like, where are you on incorporating strengths into your talent practices? And again, recognizing we're going to have people and companies from all over the map. So everything from ahead of the game, right? We've adopted it. Well, I think I just voted by accident, but that's okay. Or we're getting there, or you know what? It's just not our thing. We're very skills-focused organization. We feel comfortable in that space. And again, no right or wrong answer. Hopefully we can raise some awareness and provide some information. I think a lot of the stats that Doreen had talked through and the data and the research is mind-blowing. And in some ways, Doreen, I feel like it's just like a minor shift in thinking when we think about skills versus strengths. I recognize it's not minor. It's pretty major as we think about how organizations would start to embrace and move more to the strengths as opposed to just sticking with the skills. So, Doreen, we'll wait for a couple more poll slides, or poll comments, but anything else to add before I show the results?
No, I think that's perfect. I want to get to the strengths-based practices, so let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for the votes. It looks like we got a lot in the middle. 42%, like we're getting there, and then 43%, you know what, we want to, like this feels right. And I really like the comment that you read. I'm seeing other people saying, you know what, if you push people, they recognize if you push people to do things that maybe they're good at but they don't love, burnout and frustration and negative emotions will eventually come out, make for a poor experience, probably increased turnover, right? All the impacts that we know about. So we appreciate the poll slide answers. And hopefully this is a good segue, Doreen, to really think through and talk through what are some of the practices that we can impart on you today.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to review 4 of them for you all. And my hope is that they'll level up the results in your organization as well. And I did notice that there was somebody who was like, nope, not my thing, don't want strengths, gonna stick with skills. I guess the data didn't convince, but maybe some of the practices will. So let's start with number 1, and it is refocus how your employees spend their time at work and how they view career growth.
Yeah, Doreen, I have to jump in. I've heard this concept or this phrase, I'm sure you've heard it too, is the what trumps the who and the why. So
Yes.
I'd love to hear, like, what's your take on that? How do you sort of play that or connect that to this particular practice?
Yeah, I find this one so interesting. We've all heard, we're HR practitioners, so we've read this, we've seen this about, purpose-driven work. And if you give people a reason, a really good why for the work, then that's all it's going to take to engage them. But what's so interesting is that some of the most noble professions, and Marcus Buckingham taught us this, right? Nursing, teaching, some of those things where we'd be like, there's so much purpose in that work. They have some of the highest rates of burnout because of the tasks, the work activities. So when we say the what trumps the who and the why, what we're saying is, we're not saying the who and the why aren't important. Please do not, Amy and Doreen, are not saying the who and the why are not important. They are. It's just the specific activities that someone does are the most significant factor in their satisfaction and happiness at work. So in other words, those things stem from what the person is actually doing. So employees, we mentioned this before on I like to call it the money slide, the data slide, the one that has all those objectives. Employees who strongly agree that they use their strengths every day at work, by the way, it doesn't say all day, just a side note there for everybody. Employees who strongly agree that they use their strengths every day at work are not just more productive and more likely to stay, which of course is amazing for the organization, but they're also more likely to report that they like what they do each day, which of course is great for the individual, great for the human. So encouraging employees and encouraging and enabling and supporting our employees to find ways to do more of those activities that they love and less of the ones that they loathe, as we kind of alluded to earlier, in their daily work lives will absolutely pay off for you, your teams, your leaders, and your company.
Yeah, and I'll call out to like the refocus how employees spend their time at work, right? I'll put air quotes around at work. So I've been a remote worker since 2007, long before it was like the cool thing to do. And obviously many in the last years have moved to more of a, hybrid flex work. So just being conscious of at work or while I'm working might be a maybe more progressive, Doreen, way of thinking about this particular practice. I mentioned it a bit ago too, of like flex schedules too. So recognizing some people may be working different schedules. I do also want to go back to and just sort of double click on when you said they're more likely to report that they like what they do each day, which is great for the individual. So if it's great for me, my mood, my emotion, my sentiment, how I interact, not just at work, but right. So now it bleeds into I'm home interacting with family and friends and things of that nature. It also plays into self-care and wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness. I won't go off too far on a tangent, but it's all encompassing. So the question really is, as you think about this one, it's when they're working, like what does that look like? How do they feel about the work that they're doing? Again, regardless of location and that sort of thing, but I just want to make sure we're sort of thinking bigger about, it doesn't just happen when I step into the office and then when I leave, it doesn't end. It's all encompassing. I think the last bit too is how they view career growth. Doreen, you sort of alluded to this, and we know this because we talk about this all the time. How I define career growth is different from how Doreen defines it, and it's different from, I'm picking on friends, Madison, Lisa, Jackie. Everyone's going to have a different view or a different definition, I should say. So let's just not assume that they're all the same, which also, I don't want to steal thunder, but also plays into have the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And even my definition today might be different than it was 6 months ago. So these things change. And yeah, conversation is the key to understanding this. So our second point here is we want to guide managers to ask different questions. And what do we mean by that? In a strengths-based setting, it's not enough to simply observe the competence or the capability of our employees, which, we can see that, but instead we really need to ask those questions that help us to better understand how they're feeling, to your point earlier. And especially if we know that under this definition of strengths, where there are things, activities that make me feel strong, you cannot observe how someone feels. They might be Academy Award-winning actresses. They might have a smile on their face while they're doing those expense reports. I love expense reports. Yeah, no. You have to ask them. We have to engage in the conversation so that we understand how employees feel about the work that they're doing, and so we can focus them on activities that let them and allow them really to contribute their very best. So some questions that you can start with here. What work activity did you love the most last week? And for the friends of ours in the chat who mentioned that they use Standout as well, you are recognizing these. These are part of check-in questions. So what did you loathe last week? What did you love last week? What specifically about that activity did you love or loathe? So get really specific with it. You heard Amy's example, excuse me, earlier. Facilitating, she loves it, but if it's on a topic that she doesn't enjoy, then it drains. So get super specific on that activity itself. What tasks make you feel like you're adding value to the team or to the company? What makes you feel like you're bringing your best, the contribution? What work tasks or activities would you like to do more of? Getting into that strength zone. What would you like to do less of? So this approach allows people managers more clarity around how to best distribute the daily work on their teams, as well as any additional tasks that may come up, any projects that they might have, any assignments that they might have. Knowing this information from our team members allows us to potentially maneuver work around so that you are providing more of what people love and less of what they loathe. You might have two team members that love and loathe the opposite things. So switching some of those activities is a win for everyone. FTW, for the win. And of course, this kind of maneuvering helps better position the employee, it helps better position the team and the organization for optimal success here.
Yeah, really good. And I'm watching the chat here, Doreen. So I think a lot of folks are, I'll say, agreeing, but hearing things like employee engagement. The questions I think are very helpful. That's what I'm seeing in the chat. I'll make one comment and then I'll pose a question to you that came through is asking the question slightly differently may help yield better results. So we all know we work with introverts, extroverts, people who are super talkative and very, have no problem sharing their thoughts and emotions or how they're feeling, and others that are a little bit more just private and secluded. So one of the questions was like, how do you ask these questions? Where does this fit in like a manager's repertoire? So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say these are the questions that, surround a manager's work. We as people leaders tend to spend loads and loads of time on the tactical. What client are you working with today? How far are you on your project plan? How many patients are you seeing in the schedule? We're very, very tactical. And we need to instead, at the very least weekly, bring a conversation up that is what we just chatted about. What activities did you love? What are you looking forward to most next week? What can I help you with? So separate out those things and carve out some time for these more targeted questions that allow you as a people leader to distribute work in a way that gives you all those wins on the money slide.
Yeah, and give the opportunity for your team to do their own reflection. So yes. It's going to feel, never done this before. If you've never asked these questions, it might feel a little bit awkward, but it is let's step away from the tasks, right? Lots of work to be done. Everybody's very busy. Doreen and I say that all the time, but it's important that we take the time to really connect and engage. So I'm mindful of the clock, Doreen. So let's push through. Let's go to Nancy, please. I want to jump in quickly on this one because this is very recent. I just had a conversation with someone recently, Doreen. I think I shared this with you a couple weeks ago. She's looking for a job. And so we were having this conversation. I said, how's it going? She said, Amy, I'm going out onto these job sites or I'm on LinkedIn and I read these job descriptions. I have no idea what the job is. Like, can someone just tell me what it is that the job is? We played a little bit into this conversation of when we think about modernizing hiring practices, like, the standard template of a job description oftentimes doesn't really get to the heart of what is the job. So how can organizations do better here? I think this number 3 will help us.
Yeah, for sure. The most recent focus of organizational hiring practices has been around skills. We kind of mentioned that in the talent trends up at the top, with job descriptions and interview questions focused really solely on the requirements of the job and the skills that are believed to be needed for that particular position. And technology, including AI, being used to match folks with opportunities based on skills. But taking a strengths-based approach to hiring and internal mobility requires you to actually go beyond that requirements and skills kind of basics and get crystal clear on the main activities of the role itself. And this would definitely have helped your friend if the job descriptions were more specific around the work activities that will be the most common daily activities happening in that role. And here's a suggestion for you all too, as you're thinking about, our job descriptions are mostly skills and requirements. So how can we bring this in? Consider crowdsourcing. The people who actually best know what the daily activities of the job are, it's the people doing those jobs. So you can crowdsource that information. Hey, what are the three things that you did today? What are the most common activities that you had in your work week? Bring that all together, and you can put that into your job descriptions. So once you've kind of compiled that information, update those job descriptions to include the specific details of those primary work activities. And we're not suggesting that you have to include every single work activity that exists in the job. We're talking about the ones that, take up 50, 60, maybe 75% of the time, the most common work activities. So examples might be answering client questions via video chat and email to help them complete a process within the benefits software. That's an ADP job description or activity of a particular job. Or maybe facilitating career development training sessions to large groups of employees who want to grow in their current role. That's in my job description. That's one of mine.
Yeah.
So strengths-based questions like those that we just covered in the last practice can be incorporated into your interview process then to further determine your candidates' preferences, their feelings towards the tasks that are going to be showing up in that role, the ones that they would spend the bulk of their time doing. So this approach then is going to allow candidates, as well as your recruiters and hiring managers, to more accurately assess the fit for the role based on both their aptitude and appetite, those feelings again, for the main work activities, not just the specific skills that they may need. So there's a big differentiator there. One other note. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say it also sort of starts to plant the seed really early of we are a strengths-based organization, right?
Yes.
So it starts really, really early in the process, but obviously for the hiring manager, recruiter, but really for the candidate that's coming in as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, just one more note before we get to our fourth and final practice. This is a side note about skills when it comes to hiring practices. Most skills are not able to be easily or accurately assessed. Not referring to, more technical skills like the ones that require certification or training, like computer programming, maybe Java, or some mechanical type of work, or nursing as examples, but more of the popular common ones that you see on your job descriptions today, things like communication, collaboration, influence, etc. There isn't a valid or reliable measurement of skills like this. They are really more in the eye of the beholder. So it's important to note that as we move on to our last practice.
Yeah, we're about 10 minutes out. I don't know if you had said it at the beginning, but if you have questions, we're going to try to field some in the Q&A. You can also pop them in the chat. I'm watching those as well. So bring it home here, Doreen. Number 4, practice.
Yeah, established a strengths-based performance management process. There's many companies, ours is one included, where the core of a performance management process is measure what matters. That's kind of a tenet that we hear. But one little thing that makes that very challenging is that humans, us people, we're not super reliable raters of other people's performance. And as a result, some of our traditional performance reviews that rate the skills of our employees, those have a tendency to generate unreliable data. And that in turn compromises all of the downstream talent decisions. By the way, I have a link that we can put in you already did it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was not a Doreen quote. That came directly from this video that we just gave you the link to. So a strengths-based approach to performance management actually has managers answering specific questions about their intentions with their team members. And this is on a quarterly at least or more frequent basis. I'll just share a couple of them with you. The most important and telling question is, I always go to Amy for extraordinary results. I always go to her when I need the most extraordinary results. And why this is so important, by the way, measured on a strongly disagree to strongly agree scale, 1 to 5. We are much better, humans are much better raters, we're much more reliable raters of what we intend to do versus being raters of someone else's performance, skills, etc. So when you flip the question like that, you actually end up getting a better correlation to the actual performance of the employees. So this is something I think that is a little bit different, but it does allow, this approach does allow an organization to gather better data to know how it should respond to each person's performance. Maybe that's through your compensation, your rewards mechanisms, trainings, promotions, etc.
Love it.
That's
okay,
kind of a big
Doreen.
one that we're ending with, right?
Yeah. It is, and I did pop the link in the chat, so hopefully folks can grab it. But we've covered a lot. I think everyone here deserves a little bit of a gift. I know you teased this a little bit at the beginning, but for those that have stuck with us, what do you say?
Yeah, a present for you. And I think somebody might have popped that into the chat earlier. So thank you for sharing the gift for everyone, because I love presents. They're one of my very favorite things. But we want you all to be able to discover your own gifts, your own strengths, your natural tendencies. So we do have the gift of Standout, the Standout assessment for each of you. The QR code is right there on the screen for you. And also, Emily is so kindly reposting other links for us. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of your help. You're like a gift to us. Thank you. So we would recommend, by the way, that you give yourself a little bit of a quiet space, about 20 to 30 minutes, give or take, to take this timed assessment. Go with your gut when you answer the scenarios. It should be your first instinct. And then review your report for loads of insights. Thank you very much for everybody. I'm so sorry that that QR code is not working. We will post the link in the chat again so that you all have it. Amy, if you could help me out with that, I would appreciate it.
Of course.
So although we have another article or another posting that I want to give you all as well, it's not quite as fun as the Standout assessment, but it's an article on this topic so that you've got it all for your reference. We can share that with you too. So yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties. We will find a way to make sure you get that. Hopefully you all saw the link, and maybe the link is working a little bit better than that QR code did. And speaking of QR codes, I don't know if these are going to work either, but we do want you to find us on LinkedIn so that you can connect with us later if you would like. And if you can't, if the QR codes are not working, please just search our names on LinkedIn. I know you'll find us with no problems. Amy, did we have any questions that we could, spend a minute or two on?
I do want to spend a minute, and thanks all for the comments again. Apologies. I alluded to it a bit ago, but I think a couple of other folks had jumped in. Doreen, if the current practice is very task related, Doreen, how are you doing with this client? Have you tapped in here? Have you completed this task? Where are you on this project? How do you sort of start to shift the conversation without feeling not disingenuous, but awkward, I guess is the right way to say it. Because I think for some people that are sitting much more on the skills task,
yeah,
the shift in this direction might just be a harder change. So what recommendations would you give?
Yeah, so obviously use judgment, but what I'm thinking immediately is, oh yeah, I finished this task. This is the one I'm doing next. Hey, if we have a little bit of time right now, I'd love to tell you how I felt about that task. It actually really energized me, and I don't get to do it very often, but I would love to do more of that kind of work if possible. So that's kind of just a quick shift into bringing the feelings component in. If it's not that kind of conversation where you're like really it's tight, you need to talk about this work and you need to get out of there, then maybe just shoot a note to your leader afterwards. Thanks for going over my project plan with me. When we have a few minutes together, I'd love to talk with you a little bit about those activities and which ones really fuel me and which ones are a little more challenging for me. So pop them a note and then schedule time to have that conversation.
I think it also plays, Doreen, it's good recommendations. I think it also plays to, how often are you broadening the conversation to, I say career conversation, and you and I have talked about this for 10 plus years of feels like this big event that has to take place, or there needs to be PowerPoint slides or something, but sort of weaving in more of those career conversations of like, how was your week? What was one thing you did last week that you just really felt really good? You felt valued. You felt like you were making a difference within the organization, like starting to kind of feed those in. It really is a broader career conversation without, again, making it bigger than it needs to be. But it's little bits and pieces, I think, that you could start to put into the conversations that will become more natural over time. One more quick question that came up, Doreen, on what scale would you put strength-based hiring versus skill-based hire? Like, is there a ratio where, jobs are, really 10% skill-based and 90% strength, which is maybe a stretch, or is it more of like a 50-50?
I find that question so intriguing. Now, I don't run talent acquisition, so I'll just say that as a caveat. If I did, though, I would definitely go towards the higher end of the scale on strengths. And it's because of that data point that I shared earlier, where we grow exponentially faster in areas where we're already strong. So if you have people who are loving or have great interest in particular activities within the role, they are going to learn and grow faster and stronger and better than people who might be skilled at those activities but do not like them. So I'm not saying skills should go away. Like, that's definitely still something that needs to be part of the equation. But I would err on the side of either balance or a little heavier tipping on the strength side because of how our brains work and how fast we can grow in those areas.
Yeah.
What a great convo, Amy. I could talk all day long about this stuff.
And it's already we have 1 minute left to go. I will say all of this conversation, and I saw people put it in the chat, people need people. We are humans. We are social animals. Like, so much of the baseline here for me is human to human, and recognizing that we have loves and loathes, and it's okay to talk about loves at work. I know there's a whole conversation on it. So with that, thank you, Doreen. I'll let you close us out. Appreciate the engagement, the conversation, the chat. It's been great. Apologies for the audio issues at the beginning, but Doreen, please close us out.
We roll with it, right, Amy? We figure it out. Yeah, we are straight up at the top of the hour. I'm sure you all have other places that you need to be and things that you're doing, but definitely appreciate your time and attention today. And if we missed your question, if we didn't get a chance to cover it, please find us on LinkedIn. Just shoot us a note. Be happy to answer any of those for you.
Thanks,
Connor, any closing notes?
Yes, thank you. This webcast is sponsored by ADP. The impact of your work is essential to your organization, and that is why you want to stay ahead of whatever comes next. With ADP TotalSource, ADP's all-in-one PEO solution, you can get a team of professionals to turn to and help you accomplish your goals. Whether it's payroll and taxes, compliance, cost-effective benefits, workers' comp, or attracting and retaining top talent, ADP is there so you can shift your focus to your business's most pressing HR needs and gain peace of mind. ADP's mission is to make the complex easy and, in turn, make more possible for you. To learn more about how ADP TotalSource, the nation's largest PEO, can help free you from time-consuming administrative burdens and allow you to focus on fostering a company culture that attracts, engages, and retains employees, please visit adptotalsource.com. Before we sign off, we want to thank our presenters, Doreen Coles and Amy Freshman with ADP, for the information they provided today. And we also want to thank everyone tuning in for being with us and for choosing SHRM for HR Webcasts. That concludes this program.